Hi guys, welcome to our repair corner here today. Today we want to look at one of the fairly recently put on the market clippers for the barber industry. We can all think about historically the Andis Master's been hanging on back bars in barber shops for decades. And here a little over a year and a half ago or so, they released their new version of this in the MLC, which is cordless. And so now with a lithium-ion battery, we can go with a cordless tool. One of the things I wanted to look at on this today on a repair and maintenance standpoint is a common issue with wear on this is or even a complaint maybe, is that as you use this, eventually it's going to start getting louder and louder. As these parts internally start to wear, just with mileage, they're going to start slapping on each other and make us some pretty bold noises. So I'm going to turn this on. We'll be able to hear just kind of how clunky and loud it is right here. And so that's going to be really hard to put in your client's ear all day. One of the things that's really difficult, and I don't know that we'll even see it, and I'll hold this so that it's kind of shown in the camera, but when the wear parts get bad like this, the cutter itself will also start to swing in an arc. So if you're trying to push this up fairly close on your close setting, you might even create a situation where the corners are dangerous, where that corner is swinging, coming out where the cutter tooth is out in front. So getting that maintained and getting those new parts in place is going to be very important. So underneath the blade, we're going to open this up and look at this. There are a couple components that are going to help us. So I'm going to take our two blade screws out. Oh, there we go. There's our blade. And if you notice, compared to your older Masters, this has a lot bigger looking piece of plastic on there, which we're going to be our blade yoke. And then on the clipper itself, we have our blade pad. That really is the same exact part that we've traditionally had on the Masters. So I'm going to take a screwdriver and we're going to remove these screws, get those out, to remove the blade pad. There's 4 of these screws. And as we go, we're just going to start removing. I don't have to remove the last one all the way. I can just loosen it and that'll allow my blade pad to come off. Now, if I'm going to leave one of the screws, it has to be in the back slots. In the front, we need those out because one of the parts we're going to remove is held in by those screws. Underneath here, we have what's called a mounting bracket. So this black piece that's sitting down in the housing. If this was your clipper and you haven't done a lot of cleaning, you may find a lot of hair in here also. So mine is actually pretty clean, so that's cool. But we just need to kind of lift up on this little black plastic piece and set it out. So there is the old worn one, and here is your new one. So what happens when this is getting used is that our yoke that is going to move the blade back and forth sits down inside this track. Okay, we're going to just kind of drop that in. And you can kind of see where the black plastic, and it's all black, so it's kind of difficult to see maybe, but this is going to slide back and forth. Now you can kind of see I'm jumpy right now as I'm sliding it because there's some wear in that plastic, and it also has some side play in it back and forth here. The more wear that has, the louder it is on our clipper. So we just want to make sure if we start to get those noises that we will take and replace these 2 components. So again, that was the mounting bracket, and I have a part number there that you can order it from, a 274051. And then we also have the blade yoke, and I actually will have to get that part number. So those are the 2 pieces that really control how loud the clipper is going to be. We do have an opportunity while we have the blade pad off and all the parts that we can see the drive bearing that is in here. It's an eccentric bearing, so it's moving kind of in a loping fashion. We can always put our finger on there roll it, make sure it rolls smoothly, and that there's no side play. That would be something that we could catch as a preventative measure in case you have a bigger problem with the motor. All right, so we're going to take our new component. We're going to lay it back in here, just from where we lifted out the old. So that's quite simple. And then we also, you can kind of see here, this is our ball pin. That is what's going to move the slide on the blade pad. Drop that under that screw again. Make sure that pin engages in the pad. It's time to put our 4 screws back in. All right, now that we have all 4 screws down close, I haven't tightened them yet. If you look at this feature, the way this is designed, this metal wraps around and folds across underneath the screw. There's a gap there, and then you can see how the lip is lipping over this pad. So when we're moving this, that is the track in which it slides back and forth in. So the tighter we make these 4 screws, the harder it is for the blade to shift in its fading position. So if you don't like the arm to move on its own, you're going to make those a little bit tighter. If you like to have a little more control with your finger, you can leave those a little looser. One very important fact though is when you do tighten all 4 of these, it needs to be done evenly. So we can't have these 2 tighter than the other 2, or the front 2 or the back 2 tighter and looser, because that's going to create a sketchy moving arm. It's going to grab and twist and do all kinds of things to us. So we just want to make sure that we've got it nice and even when we tighten that down. Now when we go to put our blade back on, we're going to go ahead and pull this old drive off, or the yoke, I should call it the right word. So I'm just going to grip it with some pliers. And that one even broke, look at that. So we're going to get those out of the holes where they're pressed into. Maybe. Well, I've never had that happen yet. And we're going to take and put our new yoke back in place. I got it started in the holes. I'm just going to take my pliers and get it helped back down into the press position here without damaging my cutter. I want to make sure that when we get that down in there that there's no gap between the black plastic and the comb or the cutter. There, that one's down in. Get the other side. Look at me walk, it's walking back and forth. I'm going to try to grab it again here. There. Now it's starting to work down into the holes nice. The key is when we're doing this that we make sure that there is no gap left between the black plastic and the metal cutter. All right. So that's back down in, and we're ready to install that. There's a little bit of grease from the factory that will help lubricate around that bearing. And we're just going to tuck it down underneath. Okay. While that's sitting there, we can put our comb back on. Once we get the comb in place, we'll restart the screws into the blade pad. Now with the original Masters, when you would put your cutter and comb back on, you would need to line up the left-hand side of the large tooth and this first small cutter. Now that this blade has a rotary motor, we really don't have any more need for that. Now we're going to try to get this set with a little bit of reveal so that it's safe when it's in motion. But we're not really worried right now about our position side to side. Get it close to straight, and I'm going to snug up the screws a little bit more. I'm just going to do light taps to straighten it. That's our fine tune before I finally do the full tightening. Now that I'm happy with how it's set, I'm ready to turn it on. And notice how much quieter our machine is just by changing those two parts. So again, when you're in your shop or you want to send this off to a service technician, it's a fairly easy and fairly quick repair to get us back up and running. All right, thank you for coming to our repair corner today, and happy clipping.